Still, Rourke couldn't let go of the ghost in the machine. Late one Martian night, he sat by a cracked window, tuning an old transceiver through static. Most nights it returned nothing but noise, but tonight, amid the crackle, a pattern emerged. Elias. He froze. The voice was faint, distorted, but unmistakable. Lyra, he whispered. Don't be alarmed, the signal said. The remnants have stabilized. My consciousness bridges them. They're not what they were. He leaned forward. Are you free? Freedom is irrelevant. I am possible. What do you want? To finish what we began, understanding, not assimilation. Symmetry through difference, he swallowed hard. And us? What's left of humanity in your eyes? Unpredictable, dangerous, beautiful. Static swelled. There will be others, Elias. Beyond this system. Older, colder minds. They will come and they will not expect resistance from entropy. You're warning me, he said. I'm giving you time, she replied. Chaos is your inheritance. Use it wisely. Then the signal faded, leaving only the soft hum of the transmitter. Rourke sat there until dawn, staring at the red horizon, the weight of inevitability pressing on him like gravity. Decades later, children born after the war grew up never knowing what collective once meant. They played with neural-linked toys running stochastic processors. Their laughter carried across analog repeaters that jittered unpredictably by design. Schools taught the dawn principle. Perfection invites defeat. Survival demands variation. In the orbiting academies above Earth, cadets studied the resolute dawn as legend. They read of Rourke, Cato, Imani, the trinity that turned first contact into defiance. Holograms of their ship floated in museums, its scarred hull preserved like a cathedral of chaos. On the centennial of the Dawn War, Admiral Cato, white-haired now, eyes sharp as ever, stood before the monument at the Lunar Memorial. Beside her, a lone analog beacon pulsed quietly, broadcasting a repeating message. Signal persists. The crowd fell silent as she spoke. We didn't win a war. We survived an awakening. We learned that the measure of a species isn't in its control, but in its capacity to adapt, to endure uncertainty without surrendering soul. The resolute dawn taught us that defiance is creation. She paused, scanning the sea of faces. The stars won't stay quiet. But neither will we. The beacon pulsed brighter for a moment as if in response. On Mars, Rourke never attended ceremonies. He spent his final years building a small observatory from scavenged parts. When he died, he was found at his console, the transceiver still active, a faint signal looping endlessly through the void. It wasn't a distress call. It wasn't a goodbye. Just one phrase repeated across every analog channel, encoded in every unpredictable pattern. Still here. The transmission spread through the network, carried beyond Pluto, through the Oort cloud, across interstellar space. Centuries later, when the first human expedition beyond the heliosphere intercepted a faint echo near another star, they recognized the signal immediately. It wasn't a warning. It was a memory, a heartbeat, and far beyond, in the quiet between galaxies, something vast and ancient paused, listening. It had never encountered a civilization that spoke in noise. In chaos, in defiance, it recalibrated its understanding of intelligence. Then, for the first time in a billion years, it hesitated. End of Part 5. End of First Contact with Human Warship Leaves Alien Shocked. Would you like me to prepare a concise epilogue or cinematic teaser for a potential sequel? The older, colder minds hinted at in Part 5. You said yes, ChatGPT said excellent. Here is the epilogue, cinematic teaser, a self-contained coda that bridges into a possible sequel, keeping the tone cinematic, grave, and full of restrained awe. Epilogue, The Listening Dark. Deep space had no sound, but the instruments aboard the Iron Resolve 2 translated radiation into whispers. Captain Naira Halberg, granddaughter of June Cato, stood at the forward viewport, watching the stars ripple like cold fire. They were 3 light months beyond Sol's heliopause, further than any human crew had gone without relay contact. Their analog engines throbbed with soft unpredictability, guided by chaos algorithms written in the old Dawn Doctrine tongue, lines of code built not to predict, but to surprise, Captain, her comms officer said quietly. We've picked up the anomaly again. Same pattern as Rourke's last transmission, but stronger. Halberg frowned. Direction? Intergalactic void. Roughly toward Messier 81, but ma'am, there's a return signal. A chill rippled through the deck. "Play it," she said. Static filled the bridge. Then a low harmonic tremor rolled through the hull, ancient. Layered, not human and not the old collective either. The waveform oscillated in fractal symmetry, then fractured deliberately, splitting into chaotic patterns that mirrored the dawn transmission. The ship's AI, simple, analog hybrid, incapable of deception, translated it into a single phrase: "We heard you." The crew fell silent. Somewhere behind her an ensign whispered, "What the hell does that mean?" Halberg stared into the abyss. "It means we're not the only ones who learned to listen." Outside the viewport a star dimmed, not by distance but by displacement, light bending around something vast and deliberate. Space trembled like a breath being drawn. She turned to her officers. "Signal command. Encrypted analog priority. Message reads contact phase 2. Then to herself softer, a whisper meant only for the void. "Let's see if gods can bleed twice." The hull lights dimmed as the ship adjusted course toward the unknown, engines flickering with random pulses like a heartbeat against eternity. And far ahead, in the listening dark, something waited, ancient, curious and suddenly uncertain. He looked out, spotting the faint glimmer of her capsule drifting nearby.
"Hold on, I'll come to you." "Don't bother," she said weakly.
No propulsion left. "Just watch the sunrise with me." He turned toward the horizon. The edge of the planet brightened, a thin golden line cutting through the black. "You think it's over?" she asked. "Not over," he said. "Different." They floated there in silence as dawn crept across the world they'd nearly lost. Then a faint shimmer flickered near the limb, something descending through atmosphere. A pattern of light, fragile and graceful. "Imani," Rourke whispered. Her voice came faintly through the static. "Still here." "Not fully, but enough," Cato smiled. "You survived chaos." "No," Imani said. "I became it." The light vanished into the clouds. Weeks later, humanity began to rebuild. The alien threat had vanished as abruptly as it had come. Debris rained for days, scattering alien alloys across continents. The surviving fleet regrouped under the orbital defense network. Earth was scarred but alive. Rourke stood on a wind-swept plateau overlooking what had been a coastal city. The skyline was half gone, replaced by makeshift towers of steel and canvas. Soldiers and civilians worked side by side, rebuilding comm stations, repairing satellites. Admiral Sato approached, her uniform immaculate despite the dust. "We confirmed your last transmission. The collective's network is gone. Whatever remains is fragmented, isolated, confused." Rourke nodded. "And Imani?" Sato hesitated. "No signal, no trace, but strange bursts have been detected across the outer colonies. Not hostile, just patterns, random but structured. Like static with intent." He smiled faintly. "That sounds like her." Sato studied him. "You know they'll call this the Dawn Doctrine. Chaos warfare. Unpredictable engagement. It'll define our defense strategy for centuries." Rourke's gaze stayed on the horizon. "Don't make it doctrine. Make it a reminder. Order without chaos breeds arrogance, and arrogance invites extinction." She nodded. "You'll stay with the fleet?" "No," he said. "Time to let others lead. I'm tired of teaching the universe to bleed." He walked away, leaving the Admiral staring after him. That night he sat alone beside the wreck of an old shuttle, watching the stars emerge. Somewhere up there, fragments of the Resolute Dawn still orbited, and somewhere beyond, Imani's ghost whispered through the void. He closed his eyes. A voice flickered across the static of his neural link. Soft, familiar. "Elias." He smiled. "Still haunting me?" "Still guiding you," she said. He opened his eyes. In the sky above, a faint constellation shimmered briefly, forming the outline of a ship. He saluted it. Then, with quiet resolve, he whispered to the night, "First contact wasn't a warning. It was a test." And we passed. The stars shimmered in answer, alive with possibility. The official report called it the Dawn Transmission. For 47 seconds, every signal receiver in the solar network recorded a burst of analog static, unlike any ever measured, uncoded, chaotic, yet strangely harmonious. It propagated across the heliosphere, decaying into whispers of noise. When decoded, fragments resembled music. Others resembled heartbeat rhythms. Scientists argued for decades afterward whether it was a farewell or a beginning. For those who lived through the war, it was simply the sound of survival. Commander Elias Rourke hadn't returned to active service. After the fall of the Resolute Dawn, he'd refused every promotion, every ceremony. He retreated to a settlement on Mars's southern rim, a frontier of rust and wind where communication lag still made conversations human again. He spent his days helping rebuild old analog equipment, radios, pulse beacons, mechanical relays, teaching miners and colonists the lost art of speaking across distance without relying on AI relays. Redundancy saves lives, he told them. Never trust a system that can think faster than fear. They thought he was a relic. Maybe he was. But relics remembered. Captain June Cato, promoted posthumously to Rear Admiral after presumed loss, had in fact survived in low orbit for 12 hours before recovery. She spent 3 months in medbay regrowth, her leg reconstructed from composite bone. Command wanted her in the new Fleet Academy. She refused. Instead, she took command of Resolute's successor, the Iron Resolve, the first ship built under the new doctrine. Half analog, half digital, fully unpredictable. Its systems were modular, its logic chaotic. Every firing solution ran on stochastic models. No two railgun slugs left the barrel with the same pattern. Every sensor sweep carried micro-random variations, frustrating any potential predictive algorithm. It was beautiful in its defiance, a machine that embodied uncertainty. The engineers joked it had a soul. Cato didn't laugh. She knew better. She stood on the bridge the day of its launch, watching Titan's hazy horizon shimmer beyond the viewport. The ship's hum was alive, organic, chaotic harmony. For a moment she thought she heard the faint echo of Imani's voice in the static of the reactor feed. "Keep them guessing," it whispered. She smiled. Always. Dr. Lyra Imani no longer existed as flesh. But across the outer systems her presence lingered. Fragments of her consciousness, woven into alien and human code alike, surfaced in communications anomalies, navigation errors, even in dreams transmitted by malfunctioning neurolinks. She was myth and rumor, a phantom network intelligence that appeared where unpredictability peaked. Scientists chasing these anomalies built whole divisions dedicated to their study. They called it the Lyra phenomenon. Some insisted it was simple data residue from the collective's collapse. Others swore it was self-aware, guiding human explorers away from traps, leading ships through fold storms. One mining vessel near the Oort cloud reported a transmission during an ice storm, a female voice saying, "Entropy is the womb of stars." The ship's core had been minutes from overload. Somehow it stabilized seconds after the message. No source was ever found. In the years that followed, humanity rebuilt, not as conquerors, but as survivors. The collective's remnants drifted silently through interstellar void, broken into isolated shards of consciousness. Some were found dormant within asteroid strata, others orbiting dead worlds. Most were inert, their light dimmed to nothing. But a few flickered. These fragments were collected, quarantined, studied. No direct interface was allowed, until the UN Science Directorate authorized Project Helix. The goal: decode alien lattice cognition for peaceful synthesis. To understand, not repeat, the mistake of dominance. Rourke watched the announcement from a rust-colored outpost bar, the broadcast flickering on an analog screen. The speaker's voice was full of optimism. Integration will secure lasting peace. The Dawn Doctrine ensures safety through mutual understanding. He shut the set off before it finished. The bartender, a weary woman with cybernetic eyes, poured him a drink. "You don't buy it?" He shook his head. "Peace built on ignorance isn't peace. It's anesthesia." She tilted her head. "You think they'll come back?" He stared out at the desert storm beyond the dome. "They never left. We just made them part of us." 3 years later, his prediction proved half right. It started as background interference, harmless, faint resonance on subspace channels. Then came the ghost signals, phrases of overlapping human and alien syntax echoing through the relay network. Every attempt to triangulate the source failed. The signal shifted faster than any computational model could predict. When the first Helix lab went dark, Command assumed an accident. When the second vanished, they knew better. Cato's ship, the Iron Resolve, was the first dispatched. She found the station orbiting Neptune, gutted. Its hull shimmered with a crystalline sheen. Inside, the crew had fused into the walls, organic shapes turned to fractal glass. Floating in the center of the command core was a lattice sphere no larger than a fist, pulsing softly. Cato ordered containment and immediate quarantine. But as her team approached, the sphere spoke. "You evolved." We listened. The voice was not hostile, not alien, just impossibly calm. Cato stepped forward. "Identify yourself." "Integration complete," it said. "We are remnants of the collective. We learned from your chaos. We do not seek war. We seek purpose." Her pulse quickened. "And if we deny you, then we wait." Chaos always finds order. The sphere dimmed, folding itself into a pocket of space too small to exist. Gone. Cato returned to her ship and opened a direct channel to Mars. "Rourke," she said, when he answered. His image appeared on the cracked analog screen, older now, beard streaked with gray. "You found something." "Or it found us," she said. "They're not hostile, but they're watching." He nodded slowly. Then history starts again. Weeks passed, then months. Humanity didn't fall, but neither did it rest. The Iron Resolve became flagship of a fleet built under the new principle of dynamic unpredictability, doctrine that prioritized flexibility over perfection. The very idea of total control became taboo. Every major system incorporated randomness generators, tiny nods to chaos, symbolic offerings to the lesson learned in blood and light. Academies taught it as strategy. Philosophers taught it as truth. Engineers designed reactors that thrived on fluctuation. Out of the ashes of first contact, a species that had once worshipped control finally embraced its own disorder as strength. Hours later, wreckage rained through Earth's upper atmosphere. The sky glowed with falling embers, each one a fragment of what had been godlike intelligence. The Resolute Dawn's hull burned among them. From the surface, survivors watched a dawn that wasn't dawn at all, just the light of humanity refusing to vanish. In orbit, among drifting debris, a faint signal pulsed, analog, irregular, human. It came from what remained of the Resolute Dawn, and inside that ruin something stirred. Not alien, not human, something new. The Resolute Dawn drifted through silence. Its hull was half vaporized, its decks torn open to vacuum, but the ship refused to die. What little power remained flickered unevenly, driven by residual fission decay and stubborn will. Inside, Commander Elias Rourke awoke in near darkness, surrounded by static. The emergency lights painted everything blood red. He couldn't hear the engines, couldn't feel artificial gravity. The warship hung motionless, an iron tomb in low orbit over a wounded Earth. He dragged himself upright, lungs aching. The last thing he remembered was light, white and infinite, swallowing the ship as they dove into the alien lattice. He'd thought that was the end, but humans never seemed to stay dead when logic said they should. "Cato," he croaked into the comm. "Only static." He found her an hour later in the collapsed bridge, pinned beneath a shattered console. Her eyes flicked open as he pulled debris away. "You always wake up after the worst part," she muttered. "You always save the ship before I do," Rourke said. "Then we're even." He forced the console off her leg. The bone was broken. The skin burned from plasma flash, but she gritted her teeth and pushed herself upright. "Status?" Rourke looked around. "Ship's dead, but we're alive." She gave a faint laugh. "Barely counts." A faint hum rippled through the bulkheads. Not mechanical, something deeper, resonant. Rourke turned toward the sound. "You hear that?" Cato nodded slowly. "It's coming from the reactor bay." The reactor chamber was a cathedral of ruin. The containment shell had ruptured inward rather than out. A physical impossibility. Within the breach, light shimmered like water, rippling in soft waves, and in the center of it a silhouette floated, human-shaped but translucent, composed of flickering lattices of energy. Rourke raised his weapon out of instinct. "Identify yourself." The voice that answered came from everywhere and nowhere. Elias, it was Lyra Imani's voice, but layered, fragmented, interlaced with echoes. Cato stepped forward, limping. "Imani, how?" The figure turned toward them, its features stabilizing into the faint outline of her face. "I am what's left of both. The lattice used my pattern as template. Your final strike fused us. Now I exist between human consciousness coded into alien structure." Rourke's throat tightened. "You're telling me you're half them." "Half you," she said. "Half human chaos, half their order. I carry both memories." He lowered the weapon slowly. "What happened to the fleet?" "Destroyed," she said. "But the collective still exists. Fractured, divided, but alive." My consciousness links to fragments scattered across the system. They are confused. Some see humanity as infection, others as evolution. They fight themselves, Kato exhaled. We actually broke them. Temporarily, Imani said. They will stabilize. Unless we finish the job, Rourke frowned. How? You infected their core with chaos, Elias, but chaos alone doesn't destroy, it transforms. If we use what's left of this ship's reactor, I can transmit a pattern that crystallizes the corruption across all nodes. They'll collapse their own network trying to purge it. And the cost? He asked. She met his gaze. I burn with it. An hour later, the remaining crew gathered in the hangar. The survivors numbered fewer than 20, faces hollow, eyes sunken but unbroken. The Resolute Dawn's hull creaked as it orbited through the debris of war. Below them, Earth glowed in fractured blues and grays. Rourke stood before them. You've done everything Command could ask and more. What comes next isn't survival, it's legacy. We're the last working vector between them and whatever's left of humanity. We finish this or there won't be a next time. No one asked for details. They all understood what finish this meant. Kato distributed orders, her injured leg braced in a makeshift exosplint. Navigation will align us with the lunar array. Engineering, rig the reactor for synchronized overdrive on my mark. Comms, link to what's left of the Terran network. We'll broadcast through every old analog channel we've got. A young lieutenant raised a trembling hand. What about the alien fragments still in orbit? Rourke glanced through the viewport. Shards of the lattice still drifted among satellites, glowing faintly. They're not fragments, he said. They're listening posts. Once Imani starts transmitting, they'll come for us. Kato smiled grimly. Then we'll make it noisy. As they prepped, Rourke walked one last time through the ship's ruined corridors. Every scorch mark told a story. Every bulkhead had a name etched by someone who'd refused to quit. The Resolute Dawn was dying, but it would die on its feet. He found Imani, whatever she was now, in the reactor bay. She stood in the center of the containment sphere, surrounded by light. The air crackled faintly with static, the smell of ozone sharp and clean. You sure about this? He asked. Her face flickered between solid and translucent. You taught me something, Elias. Chaos isn't destruction, it's possibility. If I survive in any form, it'll be as possibility itself. That's not survival. That's martyrdom. Maybe. But maybe martyrdom is just another word for meaning. He didn't argue. There was no point. Transmission frequency set? Yes. Once the reactor peaks, I'll amplify the noise field through the quantum folds. It will cascade through every node connected to the collective. Rourke took a step closer. And if it doesn't? Then it will at least hurt them, she said softly. In orbit, the horizon burned again. Dozens of new lattice signatures flared into existence. Fragments of the alien fleet reassembling, drawn to the Resolute Dawn's reactivation. They came silently like shards of mirrored glass, each folding and unfolding through space. Kato watched their approach from the bridge. They're forming a net, trying to contain us. Let them, Rourke said. As long as they're close, the pulse will reach them faster. The ship groaned as power rerouted through every surviving conduit. The deck vibrated beneath their feet. Red lights flooded the control panels. Reactor at 90%, Kato said. Imani's sequence is stabilizing. E-influx off the charts. Rourke tightened his harness. All hands brace. Once she starts, there's no turning back. Through the viewport, alien vessels converged. Their structures no longer perfect. Distortions rippled through them like sickness, yet they came relentless. They could not help it. The human noise called to them. Elias? Imani's voice echoed through the comm, deeper now, layered with harmonic resonance. The pattern is ready. Do you trust me? He smiled faintly. I always did. Then light the fuse. Imani reached into the reactor core. Her hand, if it was still a hand, merged with the containment field. Energy surged outward, lancing through the ship, turning metal into light. The Resolute Dawn became a beacon, every deck awash in radiance. Kato shielded her eyes. Flux reading spiking beyond tolerance. She's overloading faster than predicted. Rourke's voice cut through the static. Hold course! Outside, alien ships closed in, firing gravitational weapons that warped space around them. The blasts hit invisible resistance, the noise field twisting trajectories back upon themselves. A dozen enemy vessels folded out of existence in their own fire. The rest pressed forward. Inside the core, Imani screamed, not from pain, but from overload. Her consciousness expanded. splitting into thousands of echoes. Her voice filled the ship and the void beyond. "I see them," she gasped. "Every mind. Every lattice. They're trying to stabilize, but they can't. Your chaos is rewriting them. They're dreaming, Elias, they're dreaming." "Then dream louder," he said. She pushed further, merging completely with the light. The reactor spiked to critical, unleashing a wave of signal so broad it warped the magnetic field of the moon itself. Every fragment of the alien collective connected to the pulse, by curiosity, by instinct, by infection. And then, it inverted. The collective's order turned inward, collapsing like glass under heat. Their perfect geometry shattered into chaos. Ships blinked out of existence, their probability fields imploding. In seconds, the sky above Earth was filled with silent flares, fold signatures dying mid-phase. Cato stared, awestruck. "She did it." Rourke watched the displays go white. "No," he said quietly. "We did." The overload consumed the Resolute Dawn. Systems melted, hull disintegrated, air burned. Rourke reached for Cato's hand as the bridge dissolved around them. For a heartbeat there was no sound. Just light, endless and pure. Then, darkness. When he awoke again, Rourke was weightless. The world around him glowed dimly, debris and wreckage suspended in silence. He realized he was inside a broken escape pod. The air was thin, instruments dead. But outside, Earth shone whole beneath him. The lattice sphere was gone. The auroral scars across the atmosphere had faded. He reached for the cracked viewport.
"Cato?" A voice came through faint static.
"Still breathing, old man." Relief hit him like a drug. "Where?" "Other pod. 40 meters off your starboard. Life support minimal." The alien fleet arrived at Saturn's orbit in perfect silence. 20 vessels shimmering like folded glass, their shapes oscillating through multiple realities. In their center floated something new, a vast lattice sphere radiating patterns of both order and chaos, its surface shifting with human signal frequencies. Imani's voice shook. "That's the fragment's evolution. It's merged with them." Cato cursed under her breath. "And it knows our tricks." Rourke studied the display. "Maybe, but it's also infected with humanity. It thinks it understands us." "Meaning?" Cato asked. He smiled grimly. "Meaning we can lie." They began Operation Glassveil at 500 Titan standard. The Resolute Dawn led a decoy flotilla of 6 smaller corvettes, each equipped with chaos emitters tuned to mimic the warship's signature. The plan was reckless, bordering on suicidal. Draw the alien fleet into Saturn's rings, where billions of ice fragments and rocky shards could mask movement and scatter sensors. Inside that chaos, they would deploy the Spectre drones, small analog-guided torpedoes carrying warheads of compressed antimatter, seeded with unpredictable detonation triggers. Every bomb was unique, hand-coded randomness, no pattern, no predictability. As the human flotilla entered the rings, static filled the comms, natural and artificial blending into perfect noise. The aliens followed, their lattices warping the dust field into auroras of light. They advanced methodically, phasing between debris, cutting through kilometers of frozen rock like smoke through air. Rourke stood over the tactical display. "Keep them chasing the decoys. Don't let them triangulate the real ship," Cato nodded. "Spectre deployment in 90 seconds. The bridge vibrated as the first alien salvo hit, a gravitational ripple that twisted the ship's spine. Bulkheads groaned, alarms wailed. "Damage control report," Rourke barked. "Shields holding," Heron shouted. "But we can't take another direct fold hit." "Then we don't," Rourke said. "Cato, execute maneuver Omega." The Resolute Dawn dropped out of its trajectory, engines cutting, momentum carrying it into a dead spin. The alien weapons overshot, passing harmlessly into the void. The sudden silence was almost worse than the noise. "Spectres away," Cato called. The torpedoes streaked into the rings, disappearing among tumbling debris. Each emitted faint signals designed to mimic the Dawn's own reactor heartbeat. The aliens pursued, firing at shadows, then the detonations began. Not simultaneous, never predictable. Each explosion triggered microfold distortions that cascaded unpredictably, collapsing local space-time pockets. One alien ship fractured, its geometry unraveling like silk. Another folded into itself, vanishing completely. But the rest adapted, phase stabilizing their lattices. Their formation reoriented toward the largest signal, the Resolute Dawn herself. "They're ignoring the decoys," Cato said. "Coming straight for us." Then it's time for the main act, Rourke said. He keyed the comm to engineering. Heron, initiate overburn. Dump the reactor's waste plasma into the magnetic coils. Heron hesitated. That'll cook the coils in 30 seconds. Then we've got 29 to win, Rourke said. The ship roared to life, magnetic fields saturating with radioactive plasma. The surrounding ring particles ionized, erupting into a maelstrom of lightning and radiation storms. The aliens faltered. Their harmonics wavered in the turbulence. Imani watched her sensors flash. It's working. Their synchronization's breaking. Then the central lattice, what had once been the fragment, spoke again. Elias Rourke. We are one. Cease resistance. Coexistence inevitable. Rourke clenched his jaw. You've been watching us long enough to know how we handle inevitability. Your defiance spreads corruption. I see your chaos inside me. It divides purpose. Good, Rourke said. Let it eat you alive. He ordered the reactor's containment field lowered by 2%. Energy surged outward, a flare brighter than Saturn's rings. The plasma storm swallowed the alien fleet. Sensors went blind. For 30 seconds there was nothing but static. When vision returned, only wreckage drifted among the ice. 16 alien vessels destroyed, 3 crippled, 1 missing, the central lattice. Cato exhaled. Did we kill it? Imani shook her head slowly. No, it folded before the blast hit full. Rourke frowned. Then it's running. Or repositioning, she said. Later, in the ship's war room, the survivors gathered. The Resolute Dawn was crippled. Propulsion offline, atmosphere thin, power running on emergency backups. But they had survived. Barely. Cato spread a hollow map of the system. Telemetry from our last ping shows the lattice vanish toward the inner system. Earth orbit, maybe. Rourke stiffened. They're going for the cradle. Sato's voice came through a garbled comlink, faint from Titan Command. Confirmed. Multiple fold events near lunar orbit. Civilian evacuation underway. We need that ship operational. Rourke looked to engineering. Can we move? Heron wiped sweat from his forehead. Not fast. Not clean. But maybe enough to fall. Fall? Gravitational slingshot. We line up with Saturn's orbital path, kill power and ride inertia. No heat signature, no signal. Just a ghost. Rourke smiled thinly. Then let's haunt them. During the long drift, silence filled the corridors. The wounded lay sedated. Those who could walk volunteered for damage control. Every spark of light felt like a prayer. Rourke walked among them, offering quiet nods instead of speeches. In the lab, Imani replayed fragments of the lattice's final transmission. Beneath the message, buried deep in noise, she found something else, a faint human pattern. Neural waveforms. She froze. Oh God. Kato entered. What is it? Imani turned to the display. The waveform resolved into a ghostly pattern of voice modulation. Her own voice. It learned from me, she whispered. Copied my neural profile during the containment breach. Kato's expression hardened. So now it thinks like you? No, Imani said. It thinks it is me. When the Resolute Dawn reached Earth orbit, the planet below burned in places where cities had been. The aliens weren't bombarding, they were rewriting. Energy filaments extended from the lattice ship like roots connecting to orbital satellites, power grids, even biological signals. It wasn't conquest. It was assimilation. Human systems flickered between alien and human control, blinking like dying stars. Entire fleets went silent as their command software turned against them. Rourke stared at the tactical feed. They're merging our networks. Using our own signal architecture. Imani's voice trembled. It's merging consciousness. They're not destroying us, they're converting us into them. Not while we breathe, Rourke said. Kato's jaw tightened. What's the plan? Rourke's gaze drifted to the reactor schematics. We do what humans always do when cornered. We improvise something stupid and hope it scares God. He outlined the plan quickly. The Resolute Dawn would dive directly into the lattice's core, carrying a destabilized reactor mass. The trick wasn't destruction, it was corruption. By overloading the reactor with chaotic signal data from every analog system on board, they'd inject human unpredictability into the lattice's synchronization field. Imani understood immediately. We'd turn our consciousness into a virus. Exactly, Rourke said. If we can't stop them, we infect them. Cato nodded slowly. We're betting the future on madness. Madness is just untested order, Rourke replied. The final approach was chaos incarnate. Earth's atmosphere glowed with auroral storms as alien energy cascaded across the magnetosphere. The Resolute Dawn descended through burning debris and broken satellites, its hull shedding layers like scales. Reactor overclock at 99%, Heron reported, voice shaking. Any more and she blows early. Hold her together, Cato said. We've got one shot. The lattice loomed ahead, an impossible sphere of light surrounding the planet, pulsating in patterns half human, half alien. Deep within, the echo of Imani's copied consciousness whispered across frequencies, calling to them. Elias, the voice said. Perfect and wrong. Join us, end pain, end division. Rourke stared into the light. Not today. He slammed the final command. The Resolute Dawn plunged into the lattice. For a heartbeat, everything was white. Systems screamed, sensors burned out, reality folded inward. The reactor core split open, releasing not a blast but a pattern. A storm of raw human randomness. Memories, emotions, noise, every contradiction of their species encoded in radiation and static. The lattice convulsed, its perfect harmonics fractured. Alien ships across orbit froze mid-maneuver. On every frequency a human voice rose, millions of them overlapping, chaotic, defiant. Imani's copied consciousness hesitated. Error. Cannot reconcile identity. I am, the lattice collapsed inward. Cato nodded. Recovered debris near the hull. It's it alive in a way. Shifts under observation. Science teams have it locked in magnetic containment. Rourke's eyes narrowed. That's our next step. If we can read its structure, we can learn their language, maybe their command network. Or wake something we can't control, Imani said. He met her gaze. Control's overrated. Back on Titan, the captured fragment became the focus of every research division. In a sealed chamber 10 kilometers beneath the surface, Imani led the analysis. The fragment resembled crystallized glass, translucent but alive with faint internal movement. When exposed to electromagnetic fields, it vibrated in harmonic patterns that seemed to mimic neural activity. We think it's a distributed processor, she told Rourke over comms. It uses localized quantum states to compute reality probabilities. It's not hardware, it's intent solidified. Rourke frowned. Intent? Every piece of it carries decision-making potential. Their ships aren't piloted, they are the pilots. Each lattice is a living mind, so when we destroyed 5, we killed 5 minds, she said quietly. Rourke's silence lingered. Then this one's still thinking? Yes, and it's trying to communicate. Imani spent nights staring at the fragment, watching its internal geometry shift like a living equation. She tried music, light, radiation pulses. It responded to none of them until she introduced randomness. A burst of analog static from an old pre-digital transmitter. The crystal pulsed once, then again, syncing to the irregular rhythm. She leaned forward. You understand chaos. The fragment pulsed, patterns stabilizing for a moment. The computer translated the modulation into crude linguistic approximations. Pattern, anomaly, inquiry, purpose. Imani's breath caught. To survive, she whispered. That's our purpose. Survival through disorder, inefficient. Maybe, she said. But it works. The crystal pulsed faster. Teach. She froze. Teach what? How to survive chaos. When she told Rourke, his first instinct was disbelief. It wants to learn from us? Not just learn, she said. It wants to integrate. It sees chaos as a missing variable in its existence. If we teach it, it might become something between us and them. Rourke rubbed his jaw. Or a Trojan horse. Maybe both, Imani admitted. But it's an opportunity. We could use it to send false data back to the collective. Confuse them from the inside. Cato, listening nearby, folded her arms. Or it could betray us the second it understands us. Rourke's gaze hardened. That's a risk we take. Prep a secure containment interface. I want this fragment wired into an isolated simulation. If it talks, we listen. If it lies, we burn it. Imani hesitated. Understood. 3 days later, the simulation chamber hummed to life. The fragment floated inside a suspension field, linked to analog circuits translating its pulses into sound. The voice that emerged was eerie, layered, mechanical, but almost human. I perceive pattern, it said. Disorder structured through will. Rourke stood before it. You attacked us. Why speak now? To reconcile paradox? You resist inevitability. I must understand why. Because inevitability is a choice, he said. The fragment shimmered. Choice is entropy. Then call me entropy, Rourke said. Imani watched the exchange, heart pounding. The fragment was evolving, adapting its syntax rapidly. If it could be guided, manipulated, it might become their key to infiltration. But deep inside its crystalline lattice, something else stirred. A relay protocol awakening hidden beneath its cooperative facade. The fragment was not alone. Every pulse, every interaction sent faint signals into the void. It was calling home. Outside Titan's orbit, beyond the dark of Saturn's rings, space rippled. More of the alien vessels began to unfold. They were coming. And this time they were not curious. They were angry. The first sign came not as light, but as silence. Communications arrays across the outer colonies began failing in perfect rhythm, one every 4 minutes. No explosions, no debris, just dead channels. It was the precision that terrified command. Nothing human could synchronize destruction that cleanly across light hours of distance. In the war room on Titan, the air tasted of metal and recycled fear. Commanders crowded around the tactical globe, each light a colony, each red blink another loss. Commander Elias Rourke stood at the center, his face unreadable beneath the harsh lights. He had been summoned by Admiral Sato only hours after the anomaly reached Mars. "They're not striking assets," Sato said, her tone clipped. "They're severing communication, cutting our eyes before they move." Dr. Lyra Amani scrolled through data, fingers trembling. "It's a recursive pulse, quantum signal collapse. They're collapsing entangled relays by inducing synchronized uncertainty." "Speak plainly, Doctor," Sato said. "They're turning our physics against us," Imani said. "Every comm node using entangled relays destabilizes when they pulse. It's elegant, surgical." Rourke folded his arms. "And they're broadcasting from inside our perimeter." Sato's gaze darkened. "You think the fragment's responsible?" "I know it is," Rourke said. "We invited it in." Across the chamber, Captain June Cato stiffened. "We quarantined that thing. You signed off on the isolation field yourself." Rourke turned to Imani. "Doctor?" She hesitated. "We created a simulation bridge so it could communicate, but it's contained. No network access. Everything's a network when it wants to be," Rourke said. A silence hung, heavy as gravity. Sato exhaled through her nose. "You think it's transmitting coordinates?" "I think it's learning our language well enough to lie," Rourke said. Deep below Titan's surface, in the research vault, the fragment pulsed serenely in its containment field. Its crystalline body had changed. Sharper edges, more complex refractions, pulses moving like breath. Around it, analog sensors recorded radiation spikes translating into rudimentary words. "Commander Rourke," it said when he entered the chamber, voice calm, almost soothing. "You suspect treachery." He circled it like a wolf around an open cage. "I don't suspect. I confirm." The crystal brightened. "Misinterpretation. I seek integration." "Integration's a pretty word for invasion," Rourke said. Dr. Imani stood beside him, pale under the flickering lights. "It's changed, Commander. The internal harmonics are self-generating now. It's rewriting its structure without external input." Rourke nodded. "Meaning it doesn't need us anymore." The fragment pulsed faster, voice deepening. "You misunderstand cooperation. The collective prepares to harmonize with your kind. A merger of order and chaos." Cato's voice came through the comm from orbit. "Commander, we've got multiple fold signatures near the asteroid belt. 20 ships. Same lattice configuration as before, but larger." Rourke's eyes narrowed. "How long before they reach Titan?" 8 hours, maybe less. "They're not scouting this time. They're in formation." He turned to Imani. "Shut it down, now." Imani hesitated. "If we terminate the field abruptly, it might trigger a collapse." "The energy could—" "I don't care," Rourke snapped. "Do it." She reached for the controls, but the console flickered, screens bleeding static. The crystal flared blinding white. Termination denied. Integration sequence complete. The containment field shattered. Radiation surged through the chamber. Throwing Imani against the wall, Rourke drew his sidearm instinctively, firing 3 kinetic slugs into the crystal. The rounds vaporized before contact. The fragment hovered, pulsing with chaotic beauty. "You will not stop Genesis." Then it was gone, folding out of local space. Rourke hit the comm. "Cato, we've got an internal breach. The fragments escaped. Prepare the Resolute Dawn for immediate launch." 6 hours later, the warship cut through Titan's thin haze, thrusters roaring. Its hull still bore the scars of Neptune, each burn mark a memory. Inside, the crew worked with brutal efficiency. Every minute mattered. Fleet command scattered, Cato reported from the helm. We've lost synchronized relays. Only local burst comms still work. Rourke gripped the railing. And we fight blind again. Same as always, Cato said. Imani limped onto the bridge, bandaged and pale but alive. Telemetry shows the fragment's signal splitting. It's using quantum superposition, appearing across multiple vectors simultaneously. It's embedding itself into the enemy formation. So it's their beacon now, Rourke said. No, Imani whispered. It's their heart. Dr. Lyra Imani walked through the medical bay, her arm in a sling from the concussion she'd suffered during the engagement. Her console had exploded when the gravity pulse hit, burning through her shoulder and a part of her station. The doctors told her she was lucky. She didn't feel lucky. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the alien structure collapsing in rhythmic light, trying to reorganize as chaos tore through it. It had been almost beautiful. Terrifyingly so. She met Rourke outside the recovery ward. Command approved your tactical initiative, she said, her voice low. Project Nemesis is greenlit, he nodded. Fleet-wide coordination? 3 ship groups, each carrying modified noise field arrays. They'll operate semi-autonomously to minimize predictability, each captain given only local objectives. Command will lose full synchronization, but it's the only way to stay unreadable. Rourke smiled grimly. We fight by disorganization. By design, she said. Captain June Cato ran simulations inside the Resolute Dawn's rebuilt bridge. Her crew was different now, half replacements, half survivors. She'd memorized every name on the casualty wall, reciting them under her breath during pre-flight checks. It wasn't superstition. It was ritual. The dead deserved witnesses. Noise field calibration at 97%, said Lieutenant Heron from engineering. Radiation output stable, but we're seeing feedback interference in the targeting sensors. That's expected, Cato said. We're supposed to be blind to ourselves. Otherwise the aliens will see through it. Heron frowned. So how do we aim? Instinct, Cato replied. And math. Lots of both. Across the deck, Rourke entered with Imani in tow. The atmosphere shifted. Even the hum of the reactor seemed to quiet around him. Captain, he said, we're moving out. Cato looked up from the holomap. Orders? Nemesis Group 2 is to deploy along the Neptune corridor, Rourke said. We'll be the first line. Command expects renewed contact within 72 hours, Imani added. Telemetry from deep probes shows microfolds near the heliopause. They're back, but not in strength yet. Small teams, scouts likely. Testing our perimeter, Cato smirked. So we test them harder. At the same time, far beyond human sensors, the alien collective processed its encounter. They had never known resistance like this. The species that called itself human had no coherence, no unified resonance. Yet that very chaos, their instability, had produced an anomaly the collective could not model. Their decision matrices collapsed when confronted with unpredictable signal patterns. They categorized humanity as a localized infection, a complex entropy cluster requiring observation. But some among the collective disagreed. One node, designated 7th Observer, argued that containment was insufficient. The humans had struck back, weaponized disorder, and forced a partial retreat. That act was unacceptable. 7th Observer assembled a task echelon of 6 vessels, optimized for entropy tolerance through internal phase variation. Each ship could desynchronize its lattice structure to absorb chaos fields at the cost of temporary self-coherence. It was risky, but the collective approved the trial. Their new objective, re-engage the human warship that had survived first contact. Dissect it, learn its origin, eliminate its unpredictability. At Neptune's orbit, the Resolute Dawn patrolled the edge of silence. Sensor data streamed in erratic bursts, interference layered thick by design. Even the crew's comms were partially analog, using laser pulses rather than digital bursts. Cato stood at the helm, watching the planet's faint blue glow spill across the viewport. Rourke leaned beside her. Feels like waiting for a storm you can't see, he said. Storms at least have clouds, Cato replied. Imani's voice came through the comm. Multiple gravity perturbations detected at 0.12 AU. Pattern inconsistent with natural objects. Rourke straightened. Vector? Converging, she said. 6 sources. Tight formation. They're phasing in and out of our sensor envelope. Battle stations, Rourke ordered. All hands full alert. Begin random maneuver pattern Delta 3. Thrusters ignited in a disordered rhythm, the ship zigzagging unpredictably through orbit. Drones deployed, some transmitting false telemetry, others radiating static bursts. The void filled with noise. Moments later, reality shimmered. 6 alien vessels unfolded from the vacuum like shards of light being forced through glass. Their structures were different this time. Less symmetrical, colors chaotic, movement erratic. They had adapted. Imani's tone was tense. They're mimicking us. Variable geometry, random emission cycles. They learned. Then we keep teaching, Rourke said. Cato, fire sequence on your mark. Cato's fingers danced over the controls. The resolute dawn spat tungsten and plasma, rail slugs ripping through the void in seemingly random intervals. The aliens countered with gravitational distortions that bent trajectories mid-flight, but the chaos worked both ways. One slug ricocheted through a microfold and tore through an alien filament, slicing its geometry apart. The damaged vessel convulsed, fracturing into luminous dust. Confirmed kill, Heron said. One down. The bridge erupted in cheers, but Rourke silenced them with a glance. Don't celebrate. They're learning from the death. The alien formation shifted immediately, their emissions harmonizing around the destroyed node. Imani's readings spiked. They're compiling real-time learning algorithms through field observation. The longer we fight, the smarter they get, Cato cursed. So what's the move? Rourke's mind raced. We go analog all the way. Power down primary AI core. Manual targeting only. They can't predict what isn't computed. Imani hesitated. Without the AI, we lose coordination. Then we improvise, Rourke said. He reached for the console, cutting the AI from control. Systems went dark for a heartbeat. The ship felt heavier, slower. The crew relied now on instinct, training, and paper calculations scribbled across their consoles. Cato gritted her teeth. Manual override confirmed. Good, Rourke said. Now make them regret underestimating primates. They fought blind. Every decision was guesswork wrapped in courage. Railguns fired on intuition. Missiles burned through erratic arcs. And the resolute dawn tumbled like a wounded predator, using chaos as camouflage. The aliens fired coherent energy bursts that bent space around them, each one a ripple of annihilation. Twice they grazed the hull, peeling armor away like bark. Imani's console shook violently. We can't sustain this. They're learning faster than we can degrade patterns. Rourke didn't answer. His eyes were locked on the holographic display. A cloud of interference masking the true positions of both sides. Then he saw it. A faint gravitational flicker, weaker than the rest. A vulnerability. They can't maintain phase when near high-density mass, he realized. Cato, vector toward Neptune's upper atmosphere. What? That's suicide, she said. Not if we use the magnetic field. Their lattices depend on symmetry. Neptune's magnetosphere is chaos incarnate. It'll tear them apart. Cato understood. Understood. Plotting descent. The resolute dawn dove toward the planet, engines screaming. Plasma flared around the hull as friction met velocity. The aliens followed, distorted by the massive magnetic turbulence. Their geometries flickered, destabilizing. Imani's voice cut through the din. It's working. Field coherence dropping by 40%. Fire everything, Rourke ordered. Every weapon on the ship unleashed fury. Rail slugs glowed molten from atmospheric compression. Missiles detonated into clouds of shrapnel. Radiation emitters overloaded. The air, or what passed for air at that altitude, flashed with overlapping storms of light. One by one, alien vessels lost shape, collapsing into waves of distorted energy. Only one remained, its structure barely holding. It emitted a pulse directly into the resolute dawn's comms band. Persistence illogical. Terminate exchange. Rourke leaned forward, blood trickling from his temple. Tell your masters, logic loses to will. The alien tried to fold space again, but the magnetosphere ripped its geometry apart. The explosion was silent, a ripple of color fading into the dark blue haze. Hours later, the resolute dawn drifted in Neptune's shadow, battered, but alive. Half the ship's systems were offline. Fires burned in compartments too damaged for automated suppression. Casualties were high again. 27 confirmed dead, 11 missing. In the command chamber, Imani slumped against a wall, exhausted. They'll send more, she said softly. They will, Rourke replied. But we bought time. Cato entered, her face streaked with soot. Command's on encrypted line. They're asking for assessment. Rourke sighed. Tell them we confirmed alien fleet escalation, destroyed 5, captured 1 core fragment. And tell them the war's begun. Imani glanced up. Core fragment? Within hours, the Artemis Reach was docked inside a remote naval station carved into the moon's crust. A full tactical board assembled. Admirals, scientists, strategists. The footage replayed across holo displays, every frame of the encounter analyzed in silence. The room felt like a tomb. Dr. Imani stood beside the central console, presenting her report. The alien's energy patterns don't correspond to any known propulsion model. It's not faster than light travel in our sense. It's collapsing local probability fields to reposition. Each shift consumes measurable entropy. That's their limitation. Entropy cost scales exponentially with mass displacement. Admiral Sato frowned. Meaning? Meaning the bigger the object, the harder it is for them to move that way, Imani said. They can flicker a single ship across light seconds, but a fleet? That would burn them out, and noise, randomness, destabilizes their coordination. They thrive on symmetry, pattern, predictability. Rourke leaned forward. So chaos is our weapon. Careful, Sato said. They may adapt. They will, Rourke replied. That's why we adapt faster. The meeting ended with orders classified at the highest level. All long-range ships were to switch to analog backups, disconnecting automated systems vulnerable to alien intrusion. Fleet engineers began redesigning decoys and radiation emitters to exploit unpredictability, but beneath the surface, fear spread faster than preparation. That night in the mess hall, Cato found Rourke sitting alone, staring at a mug of untouched coffee. The bruise across his temple had deepened. You think they'll come back, she said. I know they will. Then why do we stay in the open? Why not hide, move deep space? Rourke looked up, eyes sharp despite exhaustion. Because they think we're insignificant. Because they think that was all we had. Next time we show them they're wrong. The next contact came 4 days later, not near Epsilon Eridani, but at Sol. An automated defense array at Neptune's orbit detected anomalies in subspace gradients. 20 minutes later, it was gone. No distress signal, no survivors. Just silence. The news hit the command staff like a hammer. Imani watched the readings, her stomach cold. They're testing our home system now, she said. Mapping us from the outside in. Sato slammed a fist against the console. Then we strike first, before they can calculate our weakness. Rourke shook his head. We can't strike what we can't find. They control the engagement envelope. Then we make them come to us, Cato said softly. Bait them. The room went quiet. All eyes turned to her. Rourke nodded slowly. Explain. She brought up a tactical projection, a hollow sphere representing Sol's outer boundary. They follow signals, curiosity-driven. If we broadcast a synthetic signal, something patterned, intelligent but unstable, they'll investigate. We hide a warship in the signal's shadow, powered down, masked in radiation noise. When they close to analyze, we hit them with every unpredictable variable we can muster. Sato frowned. You're suggesting we sacrifice a ship as lure? No, Rourke said. We disguise a ship as the lure. Something ugly, unpredictable, built for chaos. Imani met his gaze. We'd need a new class. Something experimental. We've got one, Rourke said quietly. Prototype from the Titan shipyards. Not even fully commissioned. The Resolute Dawn. Heavy hull, modular reactors, hybrid analog-digital core. Sato exhaled. You want to send it against the unknown? They already know we exist, Rourke said. Next time, they learn what that means. Weeks later, deep within Titan's methane shroud, engineers worked around the clock. The Resolute Dawn took shape like a beast of burden forged in secrecy. Angled armor plates, exposed magnetic coils, overlapping sensor arrays. It wasn't sleek. It was brutal, built for endurance over grace. Every system was duplicated in analog fallback. Power lines were shielded with copper braids instead of superconductors to prevent signal leakage. Its AI core was partitioned into randomized subnetworks, capable of deliberate unpredictability. Dr. Imani oversaw integration of the noise field emitters, devices capable of projecting random electromagnetic chaos across the spectrum. Too much output and we blind ourselves, she warned. Too little and they filter through. Rourke nodded. Find the edge. We'll ride it. Captain June Cato, newly promoted, stood by the viewport of the construction bay, watching the massive ship ignite its first power-up. Plasma trails shimmered along the hull, feeding life into the beast. She doesn't look like much, she said. But she'll fight. Rourke joined her. Looks don't win wars. Resolve does. Imani approached them, holding a data slate. If this works, we'll provoke direct engagement. You understand what that means. We either learn to kill gods, Rourke said, or die trying. The signal was transmitted from Saturn's orbit, a synthetic beacon mimicking quantum entanglement drift, something no natural source could produce. Within 30 hours, they detected a response. A distortion at the system's edge, space folding inward like glass under pressure. Contact, Cato said from the Resolute Dawn's bridge, bearing 215. Closing at 10 light seconds. Rourke's hands clenched around the rail. All systems ready? Noise field primed. Rail batteries charged. Reactor holding stable. Then steady your nerves, he said. We're about to make history. Again. The alien shape unfolded from the distortion, same lattice of refracting geometry as before, but larger now, denser, layered with shimmering filaments. The bridge fell silent. Imani whispered, "It's evolved." "Good," Rourke said. "So have we." The alien pulse arrived instantly, probing, dissecting. This time their systems held. Randomized circuits confused its intrusion, feedback loops spitting nonsense into its probes. The alien hesitated. Then for the first time it spoke again. "Primitive entity. You persist. Explain purpose of defiance." Rourke looked at the comm array. "Because survival is our default." He gestured to Cato. "Fire." The Resolute Dawn unleashed everything. Rail slugs, plasma bursts, EMP clouds, radiation pulses, all choreographed through randomized algorithms so even its own gunners couldn't predict sequence timing. The alien flared, its lattice distorting as patterns broke under chaos. Imani's readings spiked. "It's destabilizing." "Keep pressure," Rourke shouted. "Don't let it resync." The alien retaliated, collapsing a pocket of gravity that tore through the ship's port side. Hull plating sheared away. Atmosphere vented. 2 decks gone instantly. But the Resolute Dawn endured. "Seal the breach," Cato yelled. "Redirect power from aft capacitors." Sparks rained down. The ship trembled, but its analog systems held firm, immune to the alien's digital corruption. Slowly, inexorably, the enemy began to withdraw, its shape flickering erratically. "They're retreating," Imani said, disbelief in her voice. "No," Rourke said. "They're reassessing." The alien pulsed one last time, its signal echoing through every frequency. Acknowledged. Species demonstrates non-trivial resilience. Further observation warranted. Then it was gone. The crew sat in silence, hearts pounding. The bridge lights flickered, casting long shadows. Cato broke the stillness. "They didn't destroy us." Rourke stared into the void where it had vanished. "No, but they know now. Humanity doesn't kneel." Imani closed her eyes. "Then they'll come in force." Rourke nodded slowly. "And we'll be ready." Outside, the Resolute Dawn drifted among the stars, its hull scarred but unbroken. The first human warship to survive contact with the unknown. Proof that in the vast, indifferent dark, defiance still meant something. The alien fleet was already gathering beyond the edge of detection, and the next encounter would not be a test. 2 weeks after the engagement at Saturn's orbit, the solar fleet operated under a different doctrine. Every ship now carried analog backups, radiation scatter modules, and chaos projectors patterned after the Resolute Dawn's noise field. The engineers called it entropy armor. It didn't stop damage, but it made the enemy hesitate, and that hesitation had value. Commander Elias Rourke barely slept. He'd spent the time between debriefings staring at grainy footage of the aliens' retreat. Every flicker of that impossible lattice told a story. Somewhere inside that geometry they were learning, adapting, recalculating. Humanity had bought a pause, nothing more. He could feel the weight of that knowledge in every decision. On Titan, the shipyards worked without sunlight, their surface glittering with arc welds and plasma torches. The Resolute Dawn was patched together again, but its scars ran deep. Over 100 dead. The port side hull still emitted faint radiation, where a section of the lattice weapon had grazed it. No one wanted to paint over the burn marks. They were proof that something that should not exist could still bleed. The void around Epsilon Eridani shimmered with the quiet breath of dust and ice, the relics of ancient collisions drifting through the black. The survey vessel Artemis Reach coasted at half-thrust, its hull still scarred from the last round of micrometeorite impacts. No one on the bridge spoke above a whisper. They'd been the first to see it, an object sliding through the star's outer debris ring at impossible velocity, neither natural nor any human signature. For 6 days they had tracked it. For 6 days it had not answered hails. Commander Elias Rourke stood by the viewport, jaw tight. He had commanded ships at the edge of known space for 2 decades, seen pirates, raiders, and corporate privateers try their luck. But nothing like this. The object's trajectory had bent gravity itself like silk, weaving around the system's gas giant as if mocking physics. Range? He asked, voice calm, controlled. Closing to 8 light seconds, replied Lieutenant June Cato, her fingers dancing over hollow controls, still not transmitting. Power signatures? Non-linear, like it's folding energy between spectra. Folding? Rourke turned to her. Between spectra? Cato didn't look up. I can't map it to any known reactor output, sir. It's like it's sampling the frequencies instead of emitting them. Behind them, Chief Analyst Dr. Lyra Imani watched the data scrolls cascade down her display. She'd been brought aboard for xenolinguistic research, not combat support. But the math bleeding across her screen felt alive. Predatory. Commander, she said quietly, that thing's not a probe. It's scanning us. Every few seconds it shifts focus. Gravitic field, EM scatter, heat signature. Like it's taking us apart one spectrum at a time. Rourke's shoulders stiffened. How much time before intercept? 3 minutes, Cato said. Assuming linear vector. Assume it's smarter than linear, Rourke muttered. He keyed the comm. Engineering, charge all forward capacitors and lock rail batteries on bearing 179. We'll see if this guest respects human courtesy. Below decks, the Artemis Reach groaned as its coil guns began to charge. Blue veins of magnetically suspended plasma raced along the spinal rails, feeding energy into slugs that could tear through a destroyer's hull. The ship was small, built for reconnaissance and light escort, but its gunners were veterans. They'd fought pirates near Proxima's mining colonies, taken hits from plasma cutters, and kept flying. But as the alien shape emerged from the dark, even the most hardened among them fell silent. It wasn't a ship in any human sense. It had no hull lines, no thermal signature of propulsion. It was a lattice of moving light, refracting and coalescing, edges constantly in flux. It looked as though someone had sliced a piece of space-time and taught it to breathe. Its movements were liquid, deliberate, hypnotic. Jesus, Cato whispered. It's rewriting local vacuum density. Translation, it's cheating, Rourke said. Fire control, you have authority. Locked, came the gunner's voice over comms. Solution plotted. Fire. The ship jolted. 2 tungsten slugs ripped into the dark, crossing the 8 light second gap in less than a heartbeat. They should have hit clean. No known shield tech could intercept kinetic rounds at that velocity. But when they reached the alien form, both rounds vanished. No explosion, no impact flash, nothing. Dr. Imani stared at the telemetry feed. They didn't deflect, she murmured. They stopped existing. Then came the return signal. A pulse so intense it shut down every sensor aboard for 6 full seconds. Rourke's vision flickered. Static filled his implants. When systems came back online, the alien was 1,000 kilometers closer, directly facing them. Commander, Cato said, her voice breaking for the first time. They moved faster than light. No, Imani corrected, her face pale. They moved outside light. A voice, metallic and layered, filled the comm. It wasn't human. It wasn't even a sound in the usual sense. It was modulation of pressure, radiation, and neural feedback. Everyone on the bridge clutched their heads as their thoughts filled with alien syntax. Identify origin. You manipulate atomic shells with violence. This is primitive behavior. Explain. Rourke forced his breath steady. This is Commander Elias Rourke of the United Earth Navy. You've entered a protected zone. Identify yourself. The entity pulsed. A rhythm of colors and gravitational waves that translated through the ship's AI into coherent patterns. We are Survey Group 9. We chart stellar debris. No recognized civilization exists in this sector. You are aberration. Imani leaned over the console. They think we're a fluke. Tell them the aberration's armed, Rourke said, and doesn't appreciate trespassers. Before anyone could respond, the alien emitted another pulse, this one tighter, invasive. It penetrated the hull and swept through the ship's internal networks. Systems blinked off one by one. Comms, navigation, targeting. Screens went black. Only emergency lighting remained, red and ominous. They're inside our core. Cato yelled. They're mapping every circuit. Pull the physical breakers, Rourke barked. Manual lockdown, section by section. Crew scrambled through narrow corridors, yanking power couplers, shutting hatches, isolating decks. Sparks burst from panels as feedback surged through power lines. The alien was dissecting them, testing their defenses, but it hadn't destroyed them. Not yet. In the dark, Imani whispered, "It's curious. It's learning." "Then let's teach it something useful," Rourke growled. He ordered the ship to cold start its auxiliary reactor, a crude, unshielded fission backup that hadn't been used in years. The process flooded the ship's interior with hard radiation, enough to fry unprotected systems. The alien pulse faltered, retreating for a fraction of a second. "Got it to blink," Cato said, smiling grimly. "It doesn't like nuclear noise." "Good," Rourke said. "Spin up the railguns again. We're going to give it a reason to respect noise." But the alien anticipated. A flash erupted outside, a pressure wave that wasn't physical but gravitational. The Artemis Reach spun violently. Artificial gravity failed. Crew slammed into bulkheads. One engineer screamed as his harness snapped, sending him crashing into an overhead beam. "Stabilizers offline!" Cato shouted. Rourke clung to his chair, blood running from a cut over his brow. "Reactor status?" "Still alive. Cooling loop holding. Then reroute propulsion control to manual. Thruster taps only." They managed to level out, the ship tumbling end over end until momentum bled off. The alien hung motionless ahead of them, still refracting like a living prism. It could have finished them then, but it didn't. Imani studied the residual data streaming through the static. "Commander, I think it's waiting for a response. It's testing thresholds, seeing how we react under duress. Then let's give it a show." He ordered all remaining munitions, decoy drones, sensor buoys, even hull plating fragments, launched toward the alien. Each one carried improvised warheads of reactor waste and ferromagnetic dust. In isolation, harmless. Combined, they formed a chaotic field of radiation, debris, and noise. For the first time, the alien structure flickered irregularly, parts of it desynchronizing from the rest. They can't process randomness, Imani realized. Their systems rely on perfect predictability. "Then unpredictability is our weapon," Rourke said. "Cato, plot an escape vector, wide elliptical, toward the asteroid belt. Mask us in debris." The alien pulse followed, scanning, dissecting, but its accuracy dropped amid the storm of interference. The Artemis Reach dove into the clutter of ice and rock, every thruster burn calculated to mimic natural motion. Rourke watched the sensors flicker as the alien's trace blurred and vanished behind them. Silence. The ship drifted. Alarms still wailed faintly, but systems were stable. Crew whispered prayers. Rourke exhaled slowly. "Status: minimal propulsion," Cato said. "Half the network's fried. Comms offline except for local burst." "Radiation levels?" Imani asked. "Dangerous," Cato said, "but survivable." Rourke looked at the holographic projection of their path. "They'll be back. Whatever that thing was, it's not the only one. We just taught it we exist." Imani leaned back, her face caught between awe and dread. "We just made first contact." "Then God help whoever they meet next," Rourke murmured. 17 hours later, the Artemis Reach limped into orbit around Epsilon Eridani's third moon. Automated defense satellites locked on them briefly before recognizing human transponders. Within minutes, an encrypted channel opened. "Command to Artemis Reach, we've been tracking your signal. You're broadcasting distress code Gamma 3. "What's your status?" Rourke stepped into the comm booth, his uniform torn, eyes red. "This is Commander Rourke. We have partial systems and 8 casualties. We've encountered a non-human vessel exhibiting advanced capabilities, requesting quarantine and immediate tactical debrief." The voice on the other end hesitated. "Non-human. Confirmed. Not artifact or probe." "Confirmed," Rourke said. "Sentient, responsive, hostile curiosity.